The morning mist hung thick over Windsor Castle grounds as Sergeant James Morrison adjusted his earpiece one final time. 23 years of service to the Crown had taught him that routine inspections were never truly routine, especially when they involved members of the royal family. What he would discover in the next hour would shake the very foundations of the monarchy and reveal secrets that had been buried deeper than any royal vault. The black Bentley sat gleaming in the early morning light, its polished surface reflecting the ancient castle walls. Morrison had conducted thousands of security checks, but something felt different today. Perhaps it was the way the morning shadows seemed to dance across the vehicle's surface, or the unusual tension he'd noticed among the senior staff. Whatever it was, his instincts were screaming that this was no ordinary day. As his gloved hand reached for the trunk release, Morrison couldn't have imagined that he was about to uncover a mystery that would connect him to the late Queen's most precious possessions, diamonds that officially didn't exist, hidden in plain sight within the very heart of the royal family's daily life. The discovery would challenge everything he thought he knew about loyalty, duty, and the secrets that lie beneath the crown's gleaming surface. The metallic click of the trunk opening would echo through history, marking the moment when a simple security check became the key to unlocking one of the most extraordinary royal mysteries ever uncovered. Sergeant James Morrison had always prided himself on his attention to detail. It was this quality that had earned him his position as one of the senior members of the Royal Protection Unit, responsible for the security of the most important family in Britain. The morning of March 15th started like any other, with the crisp air carrying the scent of spring flowers across the manicured lawns of Windsor Castle. Morrison adjusted his black uniform jacket and checked his watch, 7:30 a.m. sharp. The morning security rounds were about to begin. The royal family's vehicles were always subject to thorough inspections before any journey, no matter how short or routine. It was a protocol that had been in place for decades, born from lessons learned through years of security threats and evolving dangers. Morrison approached the line of gleaming vehicles in the castle's private garage, each one a masterpiece of automotive engineering and armored protection. The Bentley that caught his attention belonged to the Queen Consort. Its midnight blue paint reflected the overhead lights like a mirror, and the chrome details sparkled with the kind of perfection that only came from meticulous care. Morrison had inspected this particular vehicle dozens of times before, but today something felt different. Perhaps it was the way the morning light hit the car's surface, or maybe it was the unusual quiet that seemed to hang over the garage like a heavy blanket. As he began his routine exterior inspection, Morrison noticed that the car sat slightly lower on its rear suspension than usual. It was a subtle difference, barely perceptible to the untrained eye, but after years of examining these vehicles, he had developed an almost supernatural sensitivity to any deviation from the norm. The weight distribution suggested that there was something substantial in the trunk, something that hadn't been there during his last inspection 3 days prior. Morrison circled the vehicle slowly, his trained eyes scanning every inch of the bodywork. The paint was flawless, without a single scratch or imperfection. The windows were pristine, their tinted surfaces revealing nothing of the interior. The wheels were perfectly aligned, and the tire pressure appeared optimal. Everything seemed normal, yet that nagging feeling in his gut refused to disappear. He approached the driver's side door and peered through the window. The leather interior was immaculate, with every surface polished to perfection. The seats were positioned exactly as they should be, and there were no personal items visible anywhere in the cabin. It was exactly what he expected from a royal vehicle, pristine, prepared, and perfectly maintained. But it was when he moved to the rear of the vehicle that Morrison's instincts truly began to alarm him. The trunk sat slightly proud of its normal position, suggesting that whatever was inside was pressing upward against the lid. It was a subtle detail that most people would never notice, but Morrison's years of training had taught him to spot even the smallest anomalies. He reached into his pocket and withdrew his master key, a privilege that came with his senior position and one that he had never abused in all his years of service. The royal family trusted him implicitly, and that trust was something he valued more than his own life. But his duty to their safety superseded all other considerations, and if there was something in that trunk that posed a potential threat, he needed to know about it immediately. Morrison glanced around the garage to ensure he was alone. The other security personnel were conducting their own inspections on different vehicles, and the garage staff wouldn't arrive for another hour. He had a window of opportunity to investigate without drawing unnecessary attention to what might turn out to be nothing more than his overactive imagination. The key slid into the trunk lock with a soft metallic whisper. Morrison paused for a moment, his hand resting on the key, as he considered the implications of what he was about to do. Opening a royal vehicle without explicit permission was a serious breach of protocol, but failing to investigate a potential security threat would be an even greater failure of his duties. He turned the key and heard the soft click of the lock disengaging. The trunk lid lifted slightly under the pressure from whatever was inside, and Morrison felt his heart rate increase. His training kicked in automatically, and he found himself scanning the immediate area for potential threats while simultaneously preparing himself for whatever he might find. With one swift motion, he lifted the trunk lid completely, and what he saw inside made him stumble backward in shock. The trunk was filled with what appeared to be wooden crates, each one bearing the unmistakable royal cipher, the intertwined letters that indicated these items belonged to the crown itself. But these weren't just any royal items. The markings on the crates suggested they contained some of the most precious and closely guarded treasures in the royal collection. Morrison's hands trembled slightly as he leaned in for a closer look. There were 6 crates in total, each one secured with heavy brass locks that looked like they hadn't been opened in decades. The wood was dark and polished, suggesting these containers were old, possibly dating back generations. Along the sides of each crate were small brass plaques bearing inscriptions in elegant script, but from his position, Morrison couldn't make out the exact words. What struck him most was the weight these crates must represent. The Bentley suspension was clearly struggling under the load, and Morrison estimated that each crate must weigh at least 50 pounds. That meant there was potentially 300 pounds of unknown royal artifacts sitting in the trunk of the Queen Consort's personal vehicle. Morrison's mind raced as he tried to process what he was seeing. Why would these items be in this car? Where were they being transported? And, most importantly, did the Queen Consort know they were there? The possibilities ranged from innocent to deeply troubling, and Morrison realized he was facing one of the most significant discoveries of his career. He reached for his radio to contact his superior, but then hesitated. If these items were being transported with proper authorization, his call would create an unnecessary incident and potentially embarrass senior members of the royal family. But if they were not authorized to be there, his failure to report the discovery immediately could have serious consequences for national security and the protection of royal assets. Morrison decided to gather more information before making his report. He pulled out his phone and began taking photographs of the crates, being careful to capture the royal ciphers and any visible inscriptions. The images would provide evidence of what he had found while allowing him to close the trunk and continue with his normal duties until he could determine the proper course of action. As he photographed the crates, Morrison noticed something that made his blood run cold. One of the crates was slightly ajar, its lid not quite flush with the sides. Through the gap, he could see a glint of something that caught the overhead lights and threw brilliant sparkles across the interior of the trunk. It was unmistakably the flash of precious stones, diamonds, sapphires, or emeralds, the kind of jewelry that belonged in the Tower of London, not in the trunk of a car. Morrison's hands shook as he realized the magnitude of his discovery. These weren't just any royal artifacts. They appeared to be some of the crown's most precious jewels. The implications were staggering. Why were priceless royal jewels being transported in secret? Who had authorized their removal from their secure locations? And what was their final destination? He took several more photographs, including close-ups of the partially open crate and the visible jewels inside. Each image felt like evidence in what might become one of the most significant investigations in royal history. Morrison knew that his next actions would define not only his own career, but potentially the reputation and security of the monarchy itself. As he closed the trunk and locked it once again, Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. He had stumbled upon something that was clearly beyond the scope of his normal duties, something that required immediate attention from the highest levels of royal security and possibly law enforcement. Morrison completed his inspection of the other vehicles in record time, his mind focused entirely on the discovery he had made. Every few minutes, he found himself glancing back at the Bentley, as if expecting it to somehow reveal more of its secrets. The car sat there innocuously, its elegant lines and perfect finish giving no hint of the extraordinary cargo it contained. When his rounds were complete, Morrison retreated to the security office to review his photographs and planned his next move. The images on his phone seemed almost surreal, clear evidence of what appeared to be a significant security breach involving some of the most precious items in the royal collection. Each photograph told a story that Morrison was only beginning to understand, but one thing was certain: his discovery would change everything. As he sat in the quiet security office, Morrison reflected on his years of service to the crown. He had always believed that his role was to protect the royal family from external threats, but now he faced the possibility that the threat might be coming from within. The thought filled him with a mixture of dread and determination: dread at the implications of what he had found, and determination to uncover the truth, whatever the cost to his career or personal safety. The morning sun was now streaming through the office windows, casting long shadows across Morrison's desk. In a few hours, the castle would come alive with the daily activities of royal life, and decisions would need to be made about how to handle this unprecedented situation. Morrison knew that he stood at a crossroads, and the path he chose would determine not only his own future, but potentially the fate of secrets that had been hidden within the royal household for decades. Morrison picked up his secure telephone and dialed the number for his immediate superior, Inspector Caroline Walsh. As the phone rang, he rehearsed the words he would use to explain his discovery. How do you tell someone that you've potentially uncovered evidence of the unauthorized movement of priceless royal jewels? How do you convey the magnitude of such a discovery while remaining calm and professional? When Walsh answered, Morrison's voice was steady despite the turmoil in his mind. The conversation that followed would set in motion a series of events that would shake the foundations of royal protocol and reveal secrets that some people had hoped would remain buried forever. The discovery in the trunk of the Queen Consort's Bentley was just the beginning of a mystery that would challenge everything Morrison thought he knew about duty, loyalty, and the hidden complexities of life within the royal household. Inspector Caroline Walsh arrived at Windsor Castle within 30 minutes of Morrison's call, her usual composed demeanor betraying the slightest hint of urgency. At 52, Walsh had overseen royal security for over 15 years, and Morrison had never heard her voice carry the tension it had displayed during their brief phone conversation. She emerged from her official vehicle with quick, purposeful strides, her sharp eyes already scanning the garage area as if assessing potential threats. Morrison met her at the entrance to the private garage, his report folder clutched tightly in his hand. The photographs he had taken were printed and organized, each one accompanied by precise timestamps and location details. He had spent the past hour documenting every aspect of his discovery with the thoroughness that his training demanded, but also with the growing realization that he might have uncovered something far more complex than a simple security breach. Walsh studied the photographs with the intensity of a detective examining evidence at a crime scene. Her expression remained neutral, but Morrison noticed the slight tightening around her eyes that indicated her mind was racing through the implications of what she was seeing. After several minutes of silence, she looked up at Morrison with a gravity he had rarely seen in their professional relationship. The Bentley still sat in its designated space, appearing perfectly ordinary to any casual observer. Walsh approached the vehicle with the cautious respect of someone who understood that appearances could be deceiving, especially within the complex world of royal protocol. She conducted her own external examination, noting the same suspension irregularities that had first caught Morrison's attention. When Walsh used her master key to open the trunk, Morrison watched her face carefully for any sign of surprise or recognition. What he saw instead was something far more troubling, a look of grim confirmation, as if she had been expecting to find exactly what Morrison had discovered. It was a reaction that suggested this wasn't the first time such unusual cargo had appeared in royal vehicles, and Morrison felt a chill of realization that he might be dealing with something far more systematic than an isolated incident. Walsh examined each crate carefully, taking her own photographs from different angles and making detailed notes in her official logbook. Her inspection was methodical and professional, but Morrison noticed that she seemed particularly interested in the brass plaques on the sides of the crates. She photographed each inscription multiple times and spent considerable time studying what appeared to be inventory numbers or classification codes. The partially open crate drew Walsh's immediate attention, just as it had Morrison's earlier. She used a small flashlight to illuminate the interior, and Morrison could see her breath catch slightly as the beam revealed the full extent of the jewels inside. There were diamonds of extraordinary size and clarity, set in what appeared to be historical pieces that Morrison recognized from official royal portraits and ceremonial photographs. Walsh closed the trunk without comment and led Morrison to a secure area of the security office where they could speak privately. Her first action was to activate the room's electronic countermeasures, ensuring that their conversation could not be overheard or recorded by any unauthorized parties. It was a level of operational security that Morrison had only seen used during the most sensitive royal protection briefings. The explanation that Walsh provided over the next hour challenged everything Morrison thought he understood about royal protocol and the management of crown assets. She revealed that there was an unofficial network within the royal household that was responsible for the discreet movement and protection of the most sensitive royal artifacts, items that were too valuable or historically significant to be handled through normal administrative channels. According to Walsh, the late Queen had established this system decades earlier in response to several security breaches that had threatened priceless royal artifacts. The network operated with the knowledge and approval of only the most senior members of the royal household, and its existence was known to fewer than a dozen people worldwide. The system was designed to ensure that critical royal treasures could be moved quickly and secretly in response to security threats or other emergencies. Morrison learned that the crates in the Bentley's trunk contained some of the late Queen's most personal and valuable jewelry, pieces that had never been photographed for public consumption and whose existence was known only to the inner circle of royal advisors. These were not the ceremonial crown jewels displayed at the Tower of London, but rather private pieces that held deep personal and historical significance for the royal family. Walsh explained that the late Queen had made specific provisions for these items in her will, designating certain pieces to be held in trust for future generations, while others were to be distributed among family members according to her personal wishes. The process of implementing these bequests required the discreet movement of the items from their previous secure locations to new repositories or recipients. The Queen Consort's involvement in this process was entirely legitimate and had been approved at the highest levels of royal administration. However, the sensitive nature of the operation required absolute secrecy to prevent potential security threats or public speculation about the value and location of these priceless artifacts. Walsh emphasized that even within the Royal Protection Unit, only a select few officers were aware of these special operations. Morrison felt a mixture of relief and concern as he absorbed this information. Relief that he had not uncovered evidence of criminal activity, but concern about the implications of operating outside normal security protocols. He understood the need for discretion in royal affairs, but the movement of such valuable items without broader security awareness seemed to create unnecessary risks. Walsh seemed to read his thoughts and assured him that extensive security measures were in place for these operations, including real-time monitoring, encrypted communications, and backup protection teams. The fact that Morrison had discovered the cargo was not a failure of the system, but rather an indication that the routine security protocols were functioning effectively alongside the special operations. However, Walsh's next revelation added a new dimension of complexity to the situation. She explained that there had been recent concerns about the security of some royal storage facilities, including evidence of attempted unauthorized access and sophisticated surveillance activities. These threats had accelerated the timeline for moving certain high-value items, leading to the current operation. The intelligence suggested that unknown parties were specifically targeting royal artifacts with historical significance, rather than simply seeking valuable items for financial gain. This targeting implied a level of knowledge about royal collections that could only come from someone with inside access or extensive research into royal history and assets. Walsh revealed that security agencies were actively investigating these threats, but the investigation required continued movement of vulnerable items while maintaining the appearance of normal royal activities. The Queen Consort's cooperation in this effort was crucial, as her legitimate access to royal venues and her normal travel patterns provided excellent cover for the transportation of sensitive items. Morrison was sworn to absolute secrecy about these revelations, with Walsh emphasizing that any disclosure could compromise ongoing security operations and potentially endanger members of the royal family. He was also informed that his discovery had been anticipated as a possibility, and contingency plans were already in place to address his involvement in the operation. Moving forward, Morrison would be read into a higher level of security clearance that would make him aware of future special operations affecting his normal duties. This elevation came with additional responsibilities and restrictions, but also with the recognition that his attention to detail and professional discretion made him a valuable asset to the expanded security operation. Walsh arranged for Morrison to meet with representatives from the intelligence services who would provide him with additional background on the current threat assessment and his role in maintaining operational security. These briefings would take place over the coming days and would prepare him for the likelihood that similar discoveries might occur as the operation continued. The afternoon brought a series of secure communications as Walsh coordinated with various agencies and royal household officials to confirm that Morrison's discovery had not compromised the ongoing operation. Each conversation reinforced the complexity of the security environment surrounding the royal family and the constant vigilance required to protect both their personal safety and the cultural treasures in their care. Morrison spent the remainder of his shift processing the revelations of the day and adjusting his understanding of his role within the royal protection framework. He had begun the morning as a dedicated but routine security officer and was ending it as a participant in one of the most sensitive operations in royal security history. As evening approached, Morrison received a personal message from a senior member of the royal household, expressing gratitude for his vigilance and professionalism in handling the morning's discovery. The message emphasized the importance of his continued discretion and his valuable contribution to the protection of royal heritage. The black Bentley was quietly moved from the garage late in the evening, its precious cargo transferred to the next stage of its journey under heavy but discreet security escort. Morrison watched from the security office as the vehicle disappeared into the night, carrying with it secrets that linked the present to centuries of royal history. Morrison's discovery had not only revealed the existence of a sophisticated security operation but had also earned him a place within the inner circle of royal protection. As he completed his final reports of the day, he reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had begun with a simple observation about a car's suspension and had led to his involvement in protecting some of the most precious artifacts in British history. The implications of what he had learned would continue to unfold in the days and weeks ahead, as Morrison adjusted to his new role and greater responsibilities. But, for now, he felt a profound sense of pride in his service and a deeper understanding of the complex challenges involved in protecting the royal family and the cultural treasures that formed an integral part of Britain's national heritage. The quiet garage seemed almost ordinary again, with the remaining vehicles sitting in their designated spaces as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But Morrison knew that beneath the surface of routine royal life, there were layers of complexity and security that most people could never imagine, and he was now privileged to be part of that hidden world. 3 days after his discovery, Morrison found himself in a nondescript government building in central London, sitting across from two individuals who introduced themselves simply as Agent Harrison and Dr. Elizabeth Thornley. The room was windowless and sterile, equipped with the kind of sophisticated security measures that suggested conversations here were never casual. Harrison was clearly intelligence services, with the measured demeanor of someone accustomed to handling sensitive information. Dr. Thornley, on the other hand, brought an academic precision to the proceedings that indicated her expertise lay in royal history and artifact authentication. The briefing that followed painted a picture far more complex and concerning than Morrison had initially understood. Dr. Thornley began by explaining that the royal collection represented not just monetary value, but centuries of British history encapsulated in precious objects. Many pieces carried significance that extended far beyond their material worth, serving as symbols of political alliances, historical events, and cultural achievements that defined the monarchy's role in British society. Agent Harrison revealed that intelligence services had been tracking a sophisticated criminal network that specialized in historical artifacts with royal connections. Unlike typical art theft operations focused on immediate financial gain, this organization appeared to be targeting specific pieces that held particular historical or symbolic significance. Their research capabilities were extensive, suggesting access to academic resources and possibly inside information about royal collections. The network's activities had escalated significantly following the late Queen's death, as if they were aware that the transition period would create opportunities for accessing items during the complex process of implementing her will's provisions. Harrison emphasized that this timing was not coincidental. Someone with detailed knowledge of royal protocols was clearly providing information to facilitate these operations. Dr. Thornley presented Morrison with detailed documentation about the specific items he had discovered in the Bentley's trunk. Each piece was photographed and cataloged with provenance information dating back decades, or even centuries. Morrison learned that he had been looking at jewelry that had been worn by Queen Victoria, items gifted by foreign monarchs during state visits, and personal pieces that had belonged to the Queen Mother. One particular set of diamonds had an especially remarkable history. Dr. Thornley explained that these stones had originally been part of a necklace commissioned by King George III for Queen Charlotte in the 18th century. The necklace had been redesigned multiple times throughout its history, with individual stones being reset into different pieces as fashions changed and royal preferences evolved. The current setting dated to the 1950s when the late Queen had personally worked with royal jewelers to create a design that honored both historical tradition and contemporary aesthetics. The revelation that struck Morrison most powerfully was learning about the late Queen's personal instructions regarding these specific pieces. According to Dr. Thornley, the Queen had been deeply concerned about preserving not just the physical objects, but also the stories and historical connections they represented. Her will included detailed provisions for ensuring that future generations would understand the cultural significance of these artifacts, not merely their material value. Agent Harrison explained that the current threat had forced the acceleration of the timeline for implementing these provisions. Rather than the careful, methodical process originally planned, security concerns required that items be moved quickly and discreetly to prevent potential theft or damage. The Queen Consort's cooperation in this effort represented a continuation of the late Queen's personal wishes, carried out under extraordinary circumstances. Morrison learned that his discovery had actually helped confirm intelligence about the criminal network's activities. The timing and location of his find aligned with intercepted communications, suggesting that the organization was aware of the movement of royal artifacts and was potentially planning to intercept valuable items during transportation. His alertness had inadvertently provided additional security for an operation that was already under threat. The briefing included detailed information about the security measures surrounding these special operations. Morrison discovered that every movement was tracked by satellite surveillance, with backup teams positioned along transportation routes. Communications were encrypted using the highest levels of government security protocols, and contingency plans existed for numerous potential threat scenarios. However, the sophistication of the opposition required constant vigilance and adaptation of security procedures. Harrison revealed that the criminal network had demonstrated knowledge of royal security protocols that suggested either extensive surveillance or access to inside information. This possibility meant that traditional security measures might be compromised, necessitating the kind of informal oversight that Morrison's routine inspection had provided. Dr. Thornley emphasized the cultural importance of maintaining the security of these artifacts. She explained that many pieces represented unique examples of historical craftsmanship that could never be replicated if lost or damaged. Beyond their individual significance, these items formed part of a comprehensive collection that told the story of British royal history through material objects. Morrison's new role would involve serving as an additional layer of security for these operations, providing the kind of routine oversight that might detect threats that more formal security measures could miss. His regular duties would continue unchanged, but he would also be alert for any anomalies that might indicate criminal activity or security breaches. The training component of his new responsibilities included education about identifying different types of royal artifacts and understanding the security implications of various threat scenarios. Dr. Thornley provided him with reference materials that would help him recognize significant pieces and assess potential risks to their security. Agent Harrison outlined the communication protocols Morrison would use if he encountered anything suspicious related to these operations. The procedures were designed to ensure rapid response while maintaining operational security and protecting ongoing investigations. Morrison would have direct access to a secure communication channel that would connect him immediately with the appropriate response teams. The briefing also addressed the personal risks associated with Morrison's enhanced role. Harrison was frank about the possibility that his activities might draw attention from hostile parties, and provided guidance about maintaining personal security while carrying out his expanded duties. The criminal network had demonstrated a willingness to use sophisticated surveillance and intimidation tactics against those who interfered with their operations. Morrison was introduced to a network of other security personnel who were involved in similar activities across various royal venues. This community operated with high levels of compartmentalization, with each member knowing only the information necessary for their specific responsibilities. However, the shared commitment to protecting royal heritage created a strong sense of common purpose among the participants. The technical aspects of Morrison's new role included training on advanced detection equipment that could identify hidden surveillance devices or other security threats. He learned to use specialized cameras that could document evidence without alerting potential criminals to the fact that their activities had been detected. Dr. Thornley provided Morrison with historical context that helped him understand the broader significance of his work. She explained how royal artifacts had been protected through various historical crises, from World War II bombings to modern terrorist threats. The current operation was part of a long tradition of adapting security measures to meet evolving challenges while preserving cultural treasures for future generations. Morrison learned about the international implications of the current threat. Agent Harrison explained that similar criminal networks were operating in other countries, targeting royal and historical artifacts with the apparent goal of creating a private market for items that should rightfully remain in public or institutional collections. The British operation was part of a broader pattern that suggested coordinated international criminal activity. The psychological aspects of Morrison's enhanced role were also addressed during the briefing. Harrison acknowledged that carrying the burden of such sensitive information while maintaining normal daily routines could create significant stress. Morrison was provided with resources for managing this pressure and maintaining the emotional balance necessary for effective performance of his duties. As the briefing concluded, Morrison signed additional security clearance documents that formally recognized his elevated status within the Royal Protection Framework. These documents included strict confidentiality agreements and detailed descriptions of the legal obligations associated with his new responsibilities. Dr. Thornley presented Morrison with a special communication device that would allow him to access historical and authentication databases when evaluating potentially significant discoveries. The device was designed to look like a standard smartphone but included encrypted connections to specialized systems maintained by royal household and intelligence services. The final element of Morrison's briefing involved a detailed discussion of potential scenarios he might encounter and the appropriate responses for each situation. Agent Harrison emphasized the importance of remaining calm and following established protocols, even in circumstances that might seem extraordinary or threatening. Morrison left the government building with a profound sense of the responsibility he had accepted and the trust that had been placed in him. His routine duties as a royal protection officer had expanded to include a role in preserving British cultural heritage and protecting artifacts that represented centuries of royal history. The return journey to Windsor Castle provided time for Morrison to process the information he had received and begin adjusting his mindset to accommodate his new responsibilities. He understood that his discovery 3 days earlier had been just the beginning of a much larger and more complex operation that would likely continue for months or even years. As Morrison resumed his regular duties, he carried with him the knowledge that beneath the surface of routine royal life, there were ongoing efforts to protect cultural treasures that formed an integral part of British national heritage. His role in these efforts represented both a professional advancement and a personal commitment to preserving history for future generations. The quiet efficiency of Windsor Castle's daily operations took on new meaning for Morrison as he considered the hidden complexities of maintaining security for both the royal family and the priceless artifacts in their care. Every routine inspection now carried the potential for significant discoveries, and every detail required careful attention to ensure the success of the ongoing protection efforts. 2 weeks into his elevated security role, Morrison encountered his second major discovery under circumstances that proved his enhanced training was already paying dividends. The morning had started with routine patrols around the castle grounds, but Morrison's newly heightened awareness led him to notice subtle indicators that would have escaped his attention before the briefing in London. A delivery van had arrived at the service entrance bearing the credentials of a well-known catering company that frequently provided services for royal events. Everything appeared normal. The vehicle was properly marked, the driver presented correct identification, and the delivery manifests matched scheduled requirements for an upcoming diplomatic reception. However, Morrison's trained eye detected anomalies that triggered his enhanced security protocols. The van's suspension suggested it was carrying significantly more weight than would be expected for catering supplies. The driver, while presenting proper documentation, displayed subtle signs of nervous tension that seemed inconsistent with routine delivery work. Most tellingly, Morrison noticed that the van's internal cargo area had been modified with additional securing points that seemed unnecessary for standard catering equipment. Morrison activated his discreet communication device to alert the response team, while maintaining the appearance of conducting a routine inspection. Within minutes, additional security personnel arrived in the area, positioning themselves to provide backup while remaining invisible to any potential threats. The coordination was seamless, demonstrating the effectiveness of the security protocols he had learned during his London briefing. The inspection of the van's contents revealed a sophisticated operation that validated all of Morrison's concerns. Hidden beneath legitimate catering supplies were empty containers designed to precisely fit specific royal artifacts. The containers were lined with custom-fitted foam padding that matched the dimensions of several pieces from the royal collection, suggesting detailed, advanced knowledge of the items targeted for theft. More disturbing was the discovery of electronic surveillance equipment capable of monitoring royal security communications. The devices were state-of-the-art, indicating significant financial backing and technical expertise behind the operation. Agent Harrison, who arrived within 30 minutes of Morrison's alert, confirmed that the equipment represented a serious escalation in the sophistication of threats against royal security. The driver was taken into custody for questioning, but initial interrogation revealed that he was merely a hired operative with limited knowledge of the broader criminal network. He had been recruited through an intermediary and provided with specific instructions about accessing royal facilities, but had never met the principals behind the operation. Morrison's discovery had potentially prevented a significant theft, but it also revealed that the criminal network possessed detailed intelligence about royal security procedures and artifact locations. The timing of the attempted operation, coinciding with the ongoing movement of items from the late Queen's collection, suggested that someone was providing real-time information about royal activities to facilitate criminal operations. Agent Harrison briefed Morrison about the broader implications of this discovery. The sophistication of the operation indicated that the criminal network had evolved from opportunistic theft to systematic targeting of specific artifacts based on detailed advanced planning. The custom-fitted containers suggested that they had precise measurements and handling requirements for particular pieces, information that would be extremely difficult to obtain without inside access. Dr. Thornley was called in to analyze the containers and provide expert assessment of which artifacts might have been targeted. Her examination revealed that the criminals had been planning to steal several of the most historically significant pieces from the late Queen's personal collection, items whose theft would represent an irreplaceable loss to British cultural heritage. The investigation that followed Morrison's discovery uncovered evidence of a broader conspiracy that extended far beyond simple artifact theft. The criminal network appeared to be connected to private collectors who were willing to pay enormous sums for artifacts with royal provenance, regardless of their legal status. These collectors operated in complete secrecy, maintaining private museums or collections that would never be accessible to legitimate researchers or the public. Morrison learned that his actions had disrupted not just a single theft attempt, but a systematic campaign that had been planned for months. The electronic surveillance equipment found in the van had been monitoring royal security communications for an extended period, allowing the criminals to time their operations with detailed knowledge of security procedures and personnel schedules. The discovery also revealed that the criminal network had infiltrated legitimate service providers who had regular access to royal facilities. The catering company whose credentials had been used was unaware that their security had been compromised, but investigation revealed that someone with access to their systems had been providing information about delivery schedules and access procedures. Agent Harrison explained that Morrison's enhanced training and awareness had been crucial in detecting threats that might have evaded traditional security measures. The criminals had clearly studied royal security protocols extensively and had developed methods specifically designed to avoid detection by standard procedures. The aftermath of Morrison's discovery led to immediate changes in royal security protocols, with additional layers of verification required for all service providers and enhanced screening procedures for delivery vehicles. The coordination required for these changes demonstrated the extensive network of agencies and personnel involved in protecting royal assets. Morrison was commended for his role in preventing the theft, but Agent Harrison also emphasized that his success had likely drawn increased attention from the criminal network. Enhanced personal security measures were implemented for Morrison and other key personnel, recognizing that their effectiveness made them potential targets for intimidation or retaliation. The investigation revealed that the criminal network had been operating across multiple European countries, with evidence of similar operations targeting royal and historical artifacts in other monarchies. The international scope of their activities suggested coordination at levels that would require significant resources and sophisticated organization. Dr. Thornley provided Morrison with additional training about recognizing potential threats to different types of artifacts. Her expertise helped him understand how criminals might attempt to transport stolen items and what security measures would be most effective in different scenarios. This knowledge enhanced his ability to contribute to ongoing protection efforts. Morrison's enhanced role expanded to include coordination with international security agencies that were tracking the broader criminal network. His insights about the specific methods used in the attempted theft provided valuable intelligence for operations in other countries facing similar threats. The psychological impact of Morrison's success was significant, both for his own confidence and for the morale of other security personnel. His demonstration that enhanced awareness and proper training could prevent sophisticated criminal operations inspired increased vigilance throughout the Royal Protection community. Agent Harrison revealed that Morrison's discoveries had contributed to a broader intelligence picture that was helping agencies understand the full scope of the criminal network's activities. The combination of his initial discovery of the diamonds in the Bentley and his detection of the theft attempt provided crucial data points for mapping the organization's methods and capabilities. The technical analysis of the surveillance equipment revealed that the criminals had been monitoring royal communications for far longer than initially suspected. This discovery necessitated comprehensive security reviews and upgrades to ensure that ongoing protection operations could not be compromised by similar surveillance activities. Morrison learned that his role would continue to evolve as new threats were identified and security measures adapted to counter them. The dynamic nature of the criminal threat required constant adaptation and improvement of protection protocols, with personnel like Morrison serving as crucial early warning systems for potential breaches. The recognition Morrison received for his achievements included formal commendations from senior royal household officials and intelligence service leadership. However, the most meaningful acknowledgement came from the knowledge that his actions had protected irreplaceable cultural treasures that belonged not just to the royal family, but to the entire British nation. The ongoing investigation continued to reveal new aspects of the criminal network's activities, with Morrison's discoveries serving as foundation evidence for understanding their methods and objectives. His transition from routine security officer to key participant in protecting royal heritage had proven both his professional capabilities and his personal commitment to preserving history. The complexity of modern threats to royal security had transformed Morrison's understanding of his role and responsibilities. His experiences had demonstrated that protecting the monarchy in the 21st century required not just traditional security measures, but also sophisticated intelligence work and international cooperation. As Morrison reflected on the events of the past few weeks, he realized that his initial discovery in the Bentley's trunk had opened a window into a world of hidden complexities that most people could never imagine. His journey from routine security work to involvement in international criminal investigations had challenged him professionally, while providing the satisfaction of contributing to the protection of cultural treasures that represented centuries of British history. The quiet efficiency of his daily duties now carried additional meaning, as Morrison understood that every routine task might reveal evidence of threats to royal security or opportunities to protect irreplaceable artifacts. His enhanced awareness and training had transformed ordinary security work into a vital component of preserving British cultural heritage for future generations. 6 months after his initial discovery, Morrison stood in a secure briefing room at Scotland Yard, surrounded by representatives from multiple international law enforcement agencies. The investigation that had begun with his observation of unusual weight distribution in a royal vehicle had evolved into one of the most significant cultural artifact recovery operations in European history. The final phase of the operation was about to commence, and Morrison's role had expanded far beyond anything he could have imagined during his years of routine royal protection duties. Agent Harrison presented a comprehensive briefing that revealed the full scope of the criminal network Morrison's discoveries had helped expose. The organization operated across 12 countries, with sophisticated financial networks, advanced technical capabilities, and corruption of legitimate businesses to provide cover for their operations. The estimated value of artifacts they had stolen or attempted to steal exceeded £50 million, representing not just monetary loss, but irreplaceable damage to cultural heritage. Dr. Thornley had spent months analyzing recovered evidence to understand the full extent of the network's targeting of royal artifacts. Her research revealed that the criminals had been systematically cataloging royal collections across Europe, creating detailed databases that included information about security measures, transportation schedules, and storage locations. The sophistication of their intelligence gathering suggested coordination with corrupt individuals within multiple royal households and cultural institutions. Morrison learned that the containers discovered in the catering van had been manufactured specifically to transport dozens of different royal artifacts, indicating that the network had been planning a series of coordinated thefts across multiple locations. The precision of their planning was unprecedented, with evidence suggesting they had been developing their operation for over 3 years before Morrison's discovery disrupted their timeline. The international investigation had identified the network's leadership, revealing a complex hierarchy that included art dealers, corrupt academics, private collectors, and criminal organizations specializing in high-value theft. The coordination required for their operations had necessitated sophisticated communication systems and substantial financial resources, suggesting backing from sources with significant wealth and influence. Morrison's role in the final operation involved returning to his position at Windsor Castle while serving as a crucial intelligence asset for law enforcement. His enhanced training and demonstrated capabilities made him uniquely valuable for detecting potential security breaches and providing real-time intelligence about criminal activities in the royal environment. The plan involved allowing the criminal network to believe their operations had resumed normal efficiency while law enforcement agencies gathered evidence for coordinated arrests across multiple countries. Morrison would continue his regular duties while maintaining heightened awareness for any indicators of renewed criminal activity. The psychological pressure of this role was significant, as Morrison carried the knowledge that his actions could determine the success or failure of an international operation affecting cultural heritage protection across Europe. The responsibility required him to maintain absolute normalcy in his daily duties while remaining constantly alert for signs of criminal activity. 3 weeks into the operation, Morrison detected evidence of renewed surveillance around Windsor Castle. His trained eye identified vehicles and individuals conducting observation activities that matched patterns described in his intelligence briefings. The sophistication of the surveillance suggested that the criminal network had adapted their methods but remained committed to targeting royal artifacts. Morrison's reports provided crucial intelligence that helped law enforcement agencies coordinate their response to the renewed criminal activity. His ability to detect and document threats without alerting the criminals proved invaluable for maintaining the integrity of the broader investigation. The climax of the operation came when Morrison observed the same modified catering van that had been involved in the earlier theft attempt. This time, however, law enforcement agencies were prepared with comprehensive surveillance and response capabilities. Morrison's alert triggered coordinated actions across multiple countries, resulting in simultaneous arrests of network leaders and recovery of stolen artifacts. The successful conclusion of the operation resulted in the recovery of artifacts worth millions of pounds, including several pieces from the late Queen's collection that had been stolen before Morrison's initial discovery. The international cooperation required for the operation demonstrated the global commitment to protecting cultural heritage and preventing the illegal trade in historical artifacts. Morrison's contributions were recognized not only by British law enforcement and royal household officials, but also by international agencies and foreign governments whose cultural treasures had been protected by the operation. His transformation from routine security officer to international intelligence asset represented a remarkable evolution that reflected both his personal capabilities and his commitment to protecting cultural heritage. The aftermath of the operation included comprehensive reforms to royal security protocols, with Morrison's experiences serving as the foundation for enhanced training programs for security personnel across royal households in multiple countries. His insights about detecting sophisticated criminal operations became part of standard training curricula for cultural heritage protection. Dr. Thornley worked with Morrison to develop educational materials that would help other security personnel understand the significance of royal artifacts and the methods used by criminals to target them. Their collaboration combined her academic expertise with his practical experience to create resources that enhance protection capabilities across the cultural heritage community. Agent Harrison revealed that Morrison's success had led to his selection for permanent assignment to an international task force dedicated to protecting cultural artifacts from criminal organizations. This role would involve training other security personnel, developing new detection methods, and serving as a consultant for cultural heritage protection operations worldwide. The personal impact of these experiences on Morrison was profound, as he reflected on how his attention to detail during a routine morning inspection had led to involvement in protecting some of the most precious artifacts in European cultural heritage. His journey from local security duties to international recognition represented the kind of career transformation that few people ever experience. The return of recovered artifacts to their rightful locations provided Morrison with deep satisfaction, knowing that his actions had preserved cultural treasures for future generations. The ceremony at Windsor Castle, where several pieces from the late Queen's collection were returned, demonstrated the personal and historical significance of his contributions to their protection. Morrison's relationship with the Queen Consort had evolved throughout these events, with her expressing personal gratitude for his role in protecting artifacts that held deep emotional and historical significance for the royal family. Her acknowledgement of his contributions reinforced the personal meaning of his professional achievements. The international recognition Morrison received included invitations to speak at conferences about cultural heritage protection and opportunities to contribute to academic research about security methods for protecting historical artifacts. His practical experience provided valuable insights for theoretical discussions about museum security and artifact protection. The criminal network's conviction resulted in unprecedented sentences for cultural artifact theft, with Morrison's evidence playing a crucial role in establishing the scope and impact of their operations. The legal proceedings demonstrated the serious consequences of crimes against cultural heritage and established important precedents for future prosecutions. Morrison's enhanced role within royal security included ongoing responsibilities for training new personnel and developing improved detection methods for potential threats to royal artifacts. His experience had demonstrated that traditional security measures needed to be supplemented with specialized awareness of cultural heritage protection requirements. The lasting impact of Morrison's discoveries extended far beyond the immediate recovery of stolen artifacts. The operation had revealed vulnerabilities in cultural heritage protection systems across Europe and led to comprehensive reforms that enhanced security for museums, royal collections, and historical sites throughout the region. Morrison's story became part of training programs for law enforcement agencies worldwide, demonstrating how attention to detail and proper training could enable individual officers to contribute to major international investigations. His example inspired enhanced vigilance among security personnel working in cultural heritage environments. As Morrison continued his duties at Windsor Castle, he carried with him the knowledge that his routine responsibilities had the potential to protect irreplaceable cultural treasures that represented centuries of human history. His transformation from routine security officer to international cultural heritage protection expert represented not just personal achievement, but a model for how individual dedication could contribute to preserving humanity's shared cultural legacy. The quiet efficiency of royal life had resumed its normal patterns, but Morrison understood that beneath the surface of routine activities, there remained ongoing efforts to protect cultural treasures from those who would steal them for private gain. His role in these efforts had evolved from accidental discovery to deliberate expertise, representing a career transformation that reflected both personal growth and professional achievement. The late Queen's diamonds had been safely returned to their proper place within the royal collection, but Morrison's journey in protecting them had led to experiences and responsibilities that would define the remainder of his career. His initial discovery had opened a door to a world of international cooperation, cultural heritage protection, and personal fulfillment that he had never imagined possible when he first noticed unusual weight distribution in a royal vehicle's trunk.